Welcome to the Jenny Weeks podcast. I am thrilled to be hosting today because with every episode, we help to strengthen our listeners' relationship with money. We continue to build clarity through shared experiences and become more deliberate with our financial decisions. Now, as we work towards that clarity, just remember that this show provides financial education and inspiration only. It's not intended as personal investment, legal, or tax advice. Please consult with your own team of professional advisors before making any final decisions. But if becoming financially savvy is important to you, then you should be listening to this episode today. But before we begin, I want to ask you something. Are the choices that you are making supporting the life you want? Are you using your resources to create meaning? Are you aware of all the opportunities to create wealth? Are you creating your best life? I encourage you to think deeply about that today. Today, we're going to explore the topic of money within your relationships, the importance of talking about money in our relationships, how to communicate about this sensitive topic, and the impact it can have on your family and your relationships when you can successfully communicate about your family's money situation. This is important because research shows that financial disagreements are among the strongest predictors of relationship distress and divorce. So today we are joined by our guest, Sandy Gerber. She's going to help us understand what communication means so that we can gain financial agency in our relationships. Sandy Gerber is an award-winning author, TEDx speaker, and communication expert who helps people build stronger relationships through the power of emotional intelligence and authentic communication. She's the creator of Magnetic Communication and the best-selling author of Emotional Magnetism. I also understand that her podcast has won an award for, tell us, Sandy?
For 2026 Best Mindset and Mental Health Podcast.
Best Mindset and Mental Health Podcast. So, Sandy, welcome to the Jenny Weeks podcast.
Thanks, Jenny. It's so nice to see you. I am just so happy to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here today.
Awesome.
So I'd love to start off by just hearing a little bit about your journey in becoming a communication expert.
Sure. I mean, it was a bumpy road, right? Let's be real. It started really from failure. I was about 20 years ago, I was living kind of like a fraud, I felt, I looked successful from the outside. I had the awards, the team, the clients. By all accounts, I looked successful, but I didn't feel successful because in my personal relationships, I was failing. I had a failed marriage. I was burnt out. So really, I spent a decade learning how to communicate, to connect. I just studied everything I could, read everything I could on communication, emotional intelligence. I was just on a mission to find the key. I read a ton of stuff and some of it stuck, most of it didn't. And then I tripped on some research. And this research was from the 60s and it was on emotional motivation. And I learned more about myself and I learned about how to communicate better with others. I used that in my business to grow it from the corner of my bedroom to a top 100 fastest growing company. And I also used it on my first date with my now hot husband of 12 years. So it has been a journey.
Amazing. Oh, I love that. Oh, 12 years. Gosh, how time flies. Yeah. Right. So how will improving our communication skills improve our relationships?
The key here is that most of us weren't taught how to communicate, right? Like most of us haven't had formal communication skills training. So we learn typically to communicate by failing at it, right? We understand what hasn't worked well in the past. We pivot and we change or we learn and get stronger. So understanding, first of all, how we communicate with ourselves is pivotal. It's absolutely essential because the conversation you're having with yourself is the conversation you're having with everyone else in your life. So learning how to communicate, learning about yourself, how you're talking to yourself, those skills are absolutely essential and they're needed in every aspect of your life.
Wow. How we communicate with ourselves. That's that little voice that I have conversations with all the time.
That doesn't stop talking. Yeah, that voice. And it's when when we are first aware of it, this is where emotional intelligence comes in. And for those that are listening, emotional intelligence, I define it as your ability to notice, to understand, and to manage your emotions and the emotions of others. So it's being aware of what's going on with that voice inside you, with the communication that you're delivering, and really responding instead of reacting.
Very, yeah. And being able to do that unconsciously or consciously.
Consciously, like knowing, and it's a skill, right? It's just like anything. It's like a muscle. We have to work it to get stronger at it. And when we work it, we get more confident at it. So when we're talking about subjects like money that can be a little prickly, a little uncomfortable, it's usually because we haven't had that experience having those types of conversations. And we've got some issues underneath that, which we'll unpack, I'm sure, together in this chat. But it's really about first understanding what's going on inside your head. What are you saying to yourself? What is the core need that you're trying to satisfy? And then communicating and expressing that successfully.
Yes, and I think that um, when we start talking a bit about financial agency, I think that's going to be. I'm hearing that there's something there. Um, I, I'm just before we go into the meat of the financial piece.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, like, should we be communicating differently within our relationships, with our family? Like, where does, you talked about building your successful business, but starting with your family or your personal relationships. Um, why is it that we might communicate differently in one setting versus another?
Yeah, I mean, we are kind of different people in different worlds, right? So how we present ourselves in the professional world can be sometimes different than how we are personally. And our close loved ones in our orbit, they often feel that, right? We have difficulties and have more emotion in our personal relationships than we do in our professional. I think, I was a female executive in 3 male dominated industries. And I can tell you that, it's often hard at that time to have my voice heard, even though I was saying the same things with people at the table. So it depends on the situation that you're in a professional setting for women specifically. We haven't been given, we'll talk about agency, but we haven't been given that fluency, that opportunity to share what we think as much as, say, men have. So in the past. So for us, we need to learn that skill. We need to be able to understand what's happening emotionally inside of us first before we communicate. And so we're somewhat more reserved in a professional setting than we are in our personal settings, right? And often people will say to me, Sandy, like, these are great tools, but how do I use it in my professional life? I can talk that way with my husband, my partner, my child, my family member, but I'm not sure that I can have those difficult conversations at work. And it really comes down to just learning the skills and learning the frameworks to help you to communicate more successfully. So it shouldn't be different. In my life, it's not different. I have the same conversation with you as I'm having with people in my family, but it took me 10 years to get there. Right? I had to learn the skills. I had to develop them, and I had to be more confident in my own ability to express what I feel.
That makes sense. That's partly the purpose of this podcast is, when you hear things like it took me 10 years, the goal here is to try to give people a head start. You
Yeah.
don't know what you don't know, and that this was the work that we needed to do in order to be able to communicate successfully in our relationships.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many times there's so many failures I've gone through, and I actually share them quite publicly because I think that's what helps people the most is to relate to a situation that was difficult and know how I got through it. I share that, the failed marriage. I've had situations with being the female executive in those companies in tech and finance and construction, and trying to get my voice heard and pushing to get that voice heard and learning that that's not the way to do it, right? There's different ways to do it. And so that drove my passion to develop tools, pocket tools that you can just pull out in the heat of the moment when we need them the most, right? We're not going to, we read lots of nonfiction, we read lots of information, listen to lots of podcasts. But in the moment when we need to communicate and express ourselves successfully, especially when we're being hijacked emotionally, that's when we need a tool. So my job is to really make those simple, make them so that they're easy for you to recall, easy for you to play with, and easy for you to get more confident with. So one of those things, for example, would be what I call the EQ switch. So this is, I was a marketer, so I like making things easy too, but this was how I trained myself to regulate myself. There were often times where I was mistreated and even bullied in the workplace. And there was one time I was early in my career. I was in a boardroom. They said, Sandy, you're going to present to the board. And I was like, oh my gosh, so this is one of those moments where I called my mom and I'm like, I'm presenting to the board. It was all very exciting.
Yeah.
They gave me 3 slides, 10 minutes, and it was like a big deal. So I practiced. I was there. I was on it. I started talking. And within a minute or two, the CFO cut in and cut me off and started asking me what if questions. I mean, one right after the other. And I just felt like I was being attacked. I really felt emotional in that moment. And essentially, I did what you should never do. I just started making answers up. Don't recommend that. But so essentially, it was a failure. I left that meeting. I cried in the car. It wasn't pretty. But what I didn't have then that I have now is the EQ switch. And it's a tool that will help you regulate in the moment. So I'll walk you through how it works in that scenario. So this CFO cut me off. What I first should have done is the first step, which is locate where that activation happened in my body. The actual emotion, the sensation in your body, because it registers in your body before it registers in your mind.
You feel
for
it.
me, it shows up with a hot face. When you get upset, how does it show up, Jenny?
I also get a hot face. Sometimes I have a nervous laugh.
Okay, yeah. And that's typical. What people will do is often really laugh, kind of go, oh, haha. Okay. And you can feel that. You can feel it in your gut. So it comes that way. So the first thing to do is notice that. Just notice it, locate it, because that brings you into the present moment and not in the what ifs and how dare they and your mind and your focus. So that brings you into the first moment. That's it. First step, locate it. Second step is to name your emotion. And this is backed by neuroscience. It's called affect labeling. So when you name what you're feeling, the amygdala, your brain's panic button, essentially, that activity calms by 50% just by naming your emotion to yourself. So when we're in a situation where we've kind of gotten uncomfortable, we're about to talk about money, someone's asked us something we don't know the answer, locate in your body, name that emotion. In the boardroom, I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling fear. I was feeling shame. I was feeling embarrassed, right? I didn't know what to say. I felt like an idiot. So I felt shame. So saying that to yourself calms your nervous system down. Then the third step is to actually take a breath. Now, most people will say, just pause, breathe. And you're like, I'm not going to break into box breathing in the middle of this thing, right? It's not viable. But you can take a 7-second breath. And this is what I call the EQ breath. This breath is 3 seconds in through the nose, and 4 seconds out through the mouth. And what that does, and you're doing it quietly. If it's not quiet, you're into another whole conversation. So make sure it's quiet. But when you do that 7-second breath, even if we do it now, 3 seconds in, 4 seconds out, quietly, then what happens is you're regulating your nervous system, but it's giving you a chance to choose your words, to actually choose your response instead of reacting. And 7 seconds isn't a long time. So you do that, you choose your words. So if I had done that, I would have said, it's in my belly, it's in my face, I feel shame, I feel fear. I would have taken my breath and I would have responded, great question, let me get back to you. And I would have left that meeting with my dignity. So that's the difference, is we've never been taught how to self-regulate in the moment. And this tool is such a great tool to have in your pocket when you feel yourself getting charged up, when you feel yourself uncomfortable, when your voice is really loud in your mind. That's the tool that you can use.
Amazing. That's a great tool. I use it on the golf course all the time.
Yeah,
Just so you know, I heard of it as being army breathing. I can't remember where I heard about it, but I think it comes back to the military, and when you're in a state of, fear, or which would be an emotion, and that you do this and it gives you that ability to refocus.
That's right.
So, and I do use it and it does work, by the way. Amazing. But of course, to bring it into other areas. And the piece I liked about what I heard, and the part that I'm hoping might get us into a little bit of a deeper conversation, and I'm a little off script here, but the idea of naming your emotion or your feeling. So I want to let's just take a scenario, okay? So first of all, one of the things that we know is that having difficult conversations or getting on the same page or figuring out your financial agency in your relationship, there's so much more to this, will bring up different emotions.
Oh, yes.
What and so if you're not communicating right, like you've said, and there's way more steps to it all. How important, what is that emotion telling us about our relationship with money?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much emotion under money, right? So I talk about this in my book, Emotional Magnetism, but what I found was there are different personality tests and all these things. This is not a personality test. This is the research I found on emotional motivation, what actually fuels our communication, right? So when we're talking to people, think of it like a 4-lane highway, right? Each of us is driving in one of these lanes, and sometimes we'll swerve between them, but we tend to stick to one or two. That's our emotional need. That's what I call your emotional magnet. That's what you actually need in your life to be happy. And they're developed as early as 6 years of age, right? Based on your family, your upbringing, and stuff you've gone through. So when we start looking at the people in our life professionally and personally, and we understand our own emotional magnet, what's driving us, and I'll get into the 4 in a minute, and what's driving them, we understand, we shift to more of a state of empathy, and we understand why they're making the choices they do. We understand why they get upset suddenly over things. We understand why, they have this trigger around money or this issue around this. So it's a way of first understanding it's not just about money. It's not just about responsibility. It's not just about past activities that have happened. It's the emotion underneath it, what they emotionally need to be happy. And until that's satisfied, you can't get to any kind of solution together. So these 4 emotional magnets, I made them easy to remember. It's an acronym SAVE, SAVE, also because it saved my life and my relationships. So S stands for safety. So you mentioned some needs off the top. This is an easy way to think of what do I emotionally need to be excited, to communicate to people, to be interested. We get a flurry of content every day and all sources. But why do we pay attention to certain things and not the rest?
Yes.
It's because it's attached to our emotional magnet. It's what we need emotionally. So safety is a magnet for people that need security and structure and predictability. And, they are the people that are typically in service to people. They're very skilled at what they do. They're the people that have a plan for a plan. These are the people that are motivated by safety. Achievement are people that are motivated by competition, by challenge, by setting goals, being a thought leader. These people need recognition, right? They need to share their opinion, and they're very proud. So when you're looking at someone who's driven by achievement, that you have to remember they need a little more recognition than the rest of us. Hello, that's me. So then the third is value. And value is really people who, when we talk about money, these are the people that get charged up the most when we're talking about money because it matters to them emotionally. I would say people who are in the industry of finance are driven by value, right? So you probably have this as a magnet, Jenny. Like the thing is, you need growth, significance, worth. You need a return on your time, your investment, and your energy, your effort. That's essential for you. You also, if you're driven by value, you're not just thinking about quality. Quality is very important to you, but you're thinking about how to create and leave a legacy for people. So it's the value of what you're doing now and the value when you're gone, right? So it's really about, am I establishing value with the people in my life? And you'll show up in every area of your life. And then if you're driven by experience, the last one, which I'm also driven by experience, it's about having creativity and curiosity and challenge and change. It's about innovation. These are the people that are creating moments and memories for people in their life and in their orbit. So experience is usually, I want to have something fun. I want to do something different. I want to have a change. I want to make an impact, those kinds of things. So when you understand, and I'm just doing the really short version of these, there's an upside and downside in my book. But when you understand these magnets about yourself and you share them with the people in your life, the people you love and lead. I mean, I used to have every team member in my businesses go through the quiz. And so I knew what their magnet was so I could lead them successfully, right? Make sure they got what they needed emotionally in their career. And so when you know that, it totally shifts you to a state of empathy, a much more open, honest conversation. And it's safer to have conversations like conversations about money.
Wow. This is really hitting home. I've just like
Awesome.
labeled myself and my husband in all of it.
Excellent.
And now so
Yeah.
many things are making sense.
Yeah, it
Right?
is really, I'll tell you a funny story because it's really, it's so good. You can do it quickly and you go, oh, yes, now I
Yes.
understand why they're making those choices, why they're so hot about that issue and not about this one, right? Like you
Well,
understand.
Well, yeah, that exactly. And this will lead into agency because I can feel
Yes.
where this becomes important. But I'm just going
Yeah.
to give you like this typical example of something that goes on in my household. And I
Yeah.
imagine it goes
Good.
on
Do
in
it.
others as well. Okay. And whether you're a blended family or not, I have come to discover that the same issues exist. You just don't know that they exist in non blended families because you're not one, but they do.
Yeah.
Okay. So an example would be should we take our children on not should I? So one partner wants to take the kids on a all expense paid, $20,000 trip to Thailand or something.
Yeah.
And the other's going, no, we need to pay off our mortgage. Or,
Yeah.
or wait a minute, the kids need to work for that like I did. I never went on a trip to Thailand when I was 15. I'm just using an example. And what you
Yeah.
have there is one partner who's experience driven
Yes.
and achievement driven. So they want
Yeah.
the recognition for the hard work they've
That's right.
done through celebrating
Exactly.
that with their family. And then you
Mhm.
have another partner's like safety and
Yes.
value, right? That value coming through, which is I need that balance, that fairness, that you need to work hard to achieve and trying to teach. So you can see how different those magnets what were they called again?
Magnets, emotional magnets.
How
Yes.
those emotional magnets are driving a conflict
Yes.
in
And their
money.
communication. Yeah.
So I mean, and to me that well, I mean the size of the budget's going to different, different, different. But I do know it's really expensive to take your family on holidays these
Yeah.
days.
Right.
So if that's the case, and not obviously, but in most cases, most people are not going to have the same magnetisms in a relationship,
That's
right?
right. Like the thing is, like, it's not about what's compatible, what's not. Just think of it as awareness, right? First of all, understanding the people in your life that you love and lead, right?
Yeah.
What do they actually emotionally need? First of all, we don't have those conversations, right? We typically
Yeah.
don't. I had it on my first date. I was like, I was a single mom for a long time and I was starting the dating thing again. This guy was really cute. I thought, you know what? I'm not wasting any time. I'm going right to the question. So I said to him, look, I got a book coming out. It's about this stuff. Here are the 4 magnets. What do you emotionally need to be happy in your relationships? On our first date. I mean, it's not really the typical first date banter, but what it did is it opened up a dialogue. And ever since, we've honored those in each other. I'll give you an example. This stuff comes up in the tiniest little conversations and arguments. He came home one night. He was working late. I was working late. He's like, Sandy, order some food. So I pick up the app and I'm scanning through and I'm thinking, okay, he has the safety emotional magnet. So he never orders anything new, right? It's always the same thing, right? So I'm like, okay, it's in his comfort zone. I'm looking for something he's had before. Freshie, perfect. He loves their burritos. So I say to him, Lev, how about the burritos? And he said, no, I can't do that. I was like, but you love them. And he said, yeah, but they're only 3 blocks away. And I'm thinking, so what? And then I realized his other magnet is value.
Yeah.
He cannot justify home delivery that's 3 blocks away. So I kind of look at him and I smile and I go, yeah,
I
of
love
course,
him.
value. I go, value, of course. So then I say to him, just out of curiosity, how far does it have to be for it to be delivered, And he's like 5 blocks, right? So I just scroll down further and on we go, right? He's happy. He's had the delivery cost validated value, and I'm happy because it's a new restaurant experience. So these are the things, like once you start understanding the people in your life, that what they actually are magnetized by emotionally, everything starts to fit into place. You stop labeling them as difficult and you label them by their magnet. And now you can have an open, honest conversation about it. Okay, look, I know that you need achievement and I know that you need this. Instead of just thinking it, you're communicating it. And that opens up a whole new level of communication.
Absolutely. So when couples are arguing about money, what are they really arguing about?
Oh, it's so much more than money, right? It's at the
Yeah.
heart of what they need
It's their
emotionally, and it's their
magnetism.
identity, it's their fear, it's their past failures, it's their desires that they're not achieving and their frustration in that. It's all about that, right? So it's never about the money. It's always about what's underneath it.
So how do we use these tools in money conversations? I mean, that's really, this is, gosh, well, first of all, I need to read the book. Second of all, it sounds like when I'm working with couples that we need to start here. I mean,
Yeah.
really, you know, I think we do in my profession, but we do it through goal setting,
Yes.
which probably helps a little bit. But what would you say to a young couple starting out? What would you say to them when they're sitting down with their financial planner for the first time? How would you use some of these tools in a situation like that? Like,
Yeah. It's
how do we
so
break this
crucial.
down?
Yeah, we need to make it simpler. Like that's the key here is make communication simple and not a scary thing to have, right? As I said, a lot of us haven't been modeled good communication, right? We're just coming from our family upbringings and what we're experiences at work. So a lot of those aren't great. So what we need to do is make sure that we open up that conversation. The first thing to do, like when we're setting goals, we're setting boundaries, right? We're setting targets, right? But we're not talking about emotionally why that's important, right? Yes, we want to retire. Yes, we want to do that. But what will that make you feel, right? What does money make you feel is the best question you could start with, right? Tell me about how money makes you feel. It makes me feel nauseous. It makes me feel excited. It makes me feel like a failure. It makes me feel like a success. Like those are different conversations, right? So that's where we'd first start. I offer a tool like when we're having to have a difficult conversation, a necessary conversation about money, about anything really, we don't really have a framework. Many of us will walk around for days trying to figure out the best way to say it. We'll lose sleep over it. And then when we finally muster up the courage to say it, we say 4 words that we should never say. We say, we need to talk, which is just like the worst thing you could say to someone because it makes them feel defensive immediately. They're worried. So just cut that out of your vocabulary completely. Instead, you say to someone, I need to share with you how I'm feeling. That's different because it's about the person. So that's the first start. The second thing is to use a framework. I call it the honest sandwich. It's a framework you can use in your mind to structure your message so that you remain emotionally intelligent and non-emotionally hijacked. And you will get your point across without the other person getting defensive. So this is the best tool that I found in order to use. So here's how it works. You think of it as 3 steps: feel, need, and forward. So first thing you do, feel, need,
and forward.
and
Okay.
forward. Yeah. Or next, whatever works for you. So FNF is what we usually call it. So when you think of feel, so I feel frustrated that you cut me off in a meeting, or I feel frustrated with our money situation. Right. So what you're saying is I feel, and there's tons of studies on this. We don't typically start with I feel. We start with you did this, or this is the situation, or I don't like that. Instead, I feel blank. That's where you start. That doesn't put the person on the defense because it's about you and they're listening. Right. They're open. And that's what you're doing. You're opening the conversation. So I felt frustrated, or I feel frustrated with our current money situation. Then you go to need. What is it that you need? See, most people will just start in the feel and stay there. And then it's just like circling around the conversation, around and around, goes nowhere. So I need us to be more responsible with our finances. I need to feel more security. This is where your magnets come in. I need us to have a family experience together. I need the family to feel, to provide recognition for all my efforts and hard work. I need to be more secure with where we are with our finances. I need to make sure that this is truly valued by what we're spending, so that's where the magnets come in. I need this. Again, the person's not defensive because you're sharing what you need. And you're not saying, here's what you did wrong. You're saying, here's what I need to do better. So it's a totally different shift. The third thing is to move the conversation forward. We typically stop at that point and someone storms off, or we have the silent treatment, or something happens because we haven't resolved the issue. When you move to forward, you're saying, going forward, can we do blank? Or next time, can you perhaps act this way? Or next time, can you listen to what I have to say, right? So you're providing a possible solution at that point, and that moves the conversation forward. Now, some couples will be like, this works with, we've tested this with all age groups. It works with children. It works with 20-year-old adults. It works with everybody, every generation and every situation. Even if you're animated and you're in a heated argument, you can use this. Look, I feel frustrated. I need 5 minutes. Let's regroup after dinner. That's feel need forward, right? So it's a practice and a framework to help you to say what you need to say in a calm and emotionally responsible way, emotionally intelligent way. And most importantly, it doesn't make the person defensive. It makes them more open to listen to what you have to say.
Amazing. And, I work in the area of separation and divorce. And, we both you and I had failed marriages first time around. I don't like to think about that. I just like to think of it my practice round. And I got 2 beautiful children out of it, as did you. So no wrong decisions. Make your decision right. Move forward.
It led us to the people we're with.
It's learn. Exactly. But I would love for people that are going into their marriages and they're young and they're hopeful to hear about some of these skills, because I think that if you just keep spiraling and not doing anything different, it's not necessarily that you found the wrong person. I think it sometimes can be lack of communication and the magnetism and really, maybe sometimes second marriages work or second relationships because you've practiced and you've learned and you've had to go through that. And what I love about the FNF is that it makes you have to think about yourself in all of it instead of pointing the finger.
Yes.
You have to go back and say, well, what was I feeling? What do I need? And how can I say we can do it differently? Because I will find myself in my relationship just loving to talk about all the things that went wrong, right? But it doesn't really get you anywhere. It just makes people feel bad.
Yeah, you know what I call that? I call that collecting evidence, right? That's what we do. You did something wrong, and back in 1987 you did this, and it's like you've got all these
to support your beliefs and your argument, and with
you're forming a case.
And if your mind works like that, you kind of can't help it. You just have to recognize it and go, well, what's this doing? Collecting more evidence. And I used to say when I went to the family counselor once upon a time, all we would do is sit there with my collected evidence. I'd walk out of there feeling worse than when I started. I was like, this is not helpful.
That's right. No, and back to what you said, I think the thing is, the key here is to make sure people have the tools, right? We didn't have the tools. That's my whole passion. And I think it's why I'm here on the planet, frankly, is to help people to communicate, to connect. It's truly my passion. And I think, in my new book that's coming out, Connected Conversations, that is a story that I bring people into, not so much a how-to, but more a narrative story about these journeys I've gone through and the tools that I've learned and created based on those. So the reader actually experiences that, right? And understands that if they just start applying some of these things that are so easy to apply and so easy to try, it will change their lives.
I believe it. I'm going to give you a challenging one here. Okay.
Yeah, do it.
So having started this podcast, I love how I come in with ideas in my interviews but then I leave with more information. Like, I
True.
don't actually know what I'm trying to achieve. That's the point of being here. So I'm going to learn something from you today, Sandy.
Yeah,
And I
perfect.
learned from Abby Pang that I believe that we need to normalize cohabitation agreements and that they need to stop having a negative connotation to them, or, you know, and we need to normalize them, and that they're really important, that every couple thinking about marriage or living together should be going and having a meeting with a lawyer to understand their responsibility and the
Mhm.
law of what it is to be in a relationship with someone, because it's there whether you like it or not, and you can choose your framework versus having the default framework.
Yes,
However, this is a hard conversation to have with a partner.
it is.
So I'm thinking, um, based on, what you've talked today, if you're that person that knows they have to have that difficult conversation with their partner, that says, hey, I can think of one client right now, you know, you're in love, you're crazy in love, but you
Uh-huh.
know that you need to ask them to go and see a lawyer with you, or to sit down and have that conversation about money. How do we do this? I mean, give us something. Give us something,
Sure.
because this isn't just a cohab. It can be other things as well. It could
Yeah.
even be about, like, are we going to have children? I mean, but that,
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a really important, sensitive conversation that's going to unpack a lot of emotions for both parties just by addressing it, or not. But for some people, it could.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and I've had the experience of having that conversation about a cohabitating agreement after my marriage, right, ended, right? My new relationship, before we got married, I had the same conversation. I used the honest sandwich. I mean, that's the thing. You use that framework. Look, I feel anxious about what's going on, or I feel that I have failed in the past and I don't want to fail in the future. And if I feel like I feel like I failed in the past and I don't want to fail in the future. No one's going to get defensive on that, especially a person that loves you.
Mhm.
Secondly, you'd say, I need to have a plan in case this doesn't succeed. I need to have a plan. I need us to have a conversation. It may be a little uncomfortable, but I need us to have a conversation about what happens if this doesn't succeed. And it's a responsible conversation. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean that I don't trust you. It's just a responsible conversation because I've had this experience in the past and I don't want to have that again. And going forward, there's an easy way to do that. What I did in my situation, like, you don't drop the lawyer bomb. That freaks
Mhm.
people out. So basically I said, how about this? How about I print off a sample agreement and we can look at that together and see what makes us comfortable. And then to get it officialized, we can do that later. Right. But let's, let's just start that conversation. That's it. He said yes. So the thing is, because you're sharing what you feel, you're sharing
Mhm.
what you need, you're not insinuating. The reason people get defensive and uncomfortable is because they're having it mean something else than what you're saying. Right? We actually have it
Yeah.
mean, oh, I'm irresponsible. You think we're going to fail. You don't love me.
Mhm.
All these things pop up. So when you're truthful and you're using a framework like the honest sandwich and you're sharing emotionally what you need, like if you're driven by safety, for sure you want a cohabitation agreement. You don't want to be in that situation again. If you're driven by achievement, maybe you're going to get defensive because you're like, hey, I've set a goal here. We're going to succeed, you know?
Yeah.
So just being aware of the people and what they need, and then having that framework to be responsible, respectful, and empathetic in your conversation, you'll
Mhm.
succeed.
Yeah. And that's really, really good advice. I hope, everybody that can hang on to that and remember that approach. I'm also thinking about the young people that are going into their first marriages.
Uh-huh.
And, the work I've done, one of the things I see, I think sometimes people are afraid of what might happen or what they're going to hear, or a red flag that might come out if they bring that up.
Um,
Um, let's just touch a little bit on that, Sandy, because, some of the things you're saying, they sound almost too easy, because
Yeah,
wait till you start getting resistance, or wait till someone
yeah.
doesn't hear you're feeling the same way, or, how do we or maybe we do know there's a red flag, but we're not ready to address it. Right. So
Could be both of those. Yeah.
like
Could be both.
I'm trying to bring in those, because I think that's one of the things that happens in money conversations. It's like, I really, really love this person. I can see that they're in $50,000 worth of debt. Right.
Yeah.
But I still want to have a baby with them. And, I'm 34 years old. Like, I gotta move forward on this. I don't have a lot of time. I'm in love. Maybe that doesn't matter. Right.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's really important here is not to stay quiet. Not to stay quiet. Like, use your voice. Use your voice and share how you're feeling. Because if you're not, they don't know. That's the key. Is it we spend so much time trying to protect ourselves from getting hurt. We overanalyze everything. We are in two states of mind, really. We're craving something or we're averting something. We're never present, right? So when we think about these two stages, when we're in a relationship and we're needing to have a difficult conversation, this does sound easy. It is easy once you start using it. It's just getting you to use it first and learn it and try it. It's like anything, when you first try it on, it feels a little uncomfortable, but then as you do it, it becomes second nature. You don't even think about it. It's just how you talk. So being able to have these, and I wouldn't say courageous conversations. They're not courageous. They're just, two things, two ingredients: curiosity. Just have curiosity and have empathy. Those are the two things you need to have successful relationships. When you are thinking about the other person's reaction, then maybe you're going to use a framework like Honest Sandwich, because it's going to help you stay more focused on what your delivery is, and it's going to be more respectful rather than just blurting out how you feel. If you're curious, you can ask questions and say, I'm curious, why do you feel that way? I'm curious, why did you get upset when I mentioned that? Can you just tell me in a calm way? I really want to understand, where you're coming from. Is that, and then, hey, I'm curious, I'm emotionally driven and magnetized by experience and by achievement. What are you driven by? So opening up these conversations is what the younger generation needs to do. They have more information than we ever had on self-development, but communication is suffering. I mean, it really is, because, well, just a variety of things, hybrid, a whole bunch of things, work from home, all this stuff. And relationships are different now. Dating is completely different. I did a whole article on situationships now, right? Like, it's totally different than when we were dating, right? So their opportunity to be vulnerable, they're not excited to be vulnerable with people because it's scary. It's a scary part in the dating process these days. But I say to them, like, ultimately, with the people you love, the people you lead, the people that are in your orbit, until you open up that invitation to have an honest and authentic conversation about how you're feeling, you're never going to get to that level.
Yes. Wow. That's a whole other conversation about the younger generation.
Yeah.
And that's where we can lead, right? As parents, and
Yeah.
as influencers, in the work that we do. Wow, this has been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I'm hoping I can have you on again. There's so much more to unpack here.
Yeah. Great.
But I do have one question that I like to ask all my guests before they go, which is really about, like, what was your most influential or significant financial decision or experience that you've ever had, and why? It can be positive or negative, and why, and what was the impact? It's a very personal question.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy for me to answer. It was life-changing. So it was, when my marriage was failing, and I decided actually to leave a six-figure income job and start my own business in my bedroom. And let's be clear, it wasn't a bedroom business. It was a consultancy in my bedroom, let's be clear. But,
before COVID, before people did that.
That's right. This was new. No one was doing this, right? And so taking that chance and trusting in myself and my abilities, having the courage to do that was a big choice. Because I didn't have the financial stability, it was completely unknown what was going to happen. And for me, being achievement and experience driven, I didn't even know that at the time. That's what led me to this journey. So I'd say to your listeners, any big moment like that you feel in your gut is something that's calling you, listen to it. It's leading you exactly where you're supposed to go. And It won't be easy. It will be difficult, but you'll learn from those experiences and hopefully you'll do what I do, which is help others.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you so much, Sandy.
Thanks, Jenny. It's so great to see you again.
Yeah, thank you so much. And can you tell our listeners where they can find you in case they want to listen to your podcast or read your book?
Sure, happy to. So I'd love to keep that connection going. So sandygerber.com is my website. Lots of resources there for you that are free. Magnetic Communication is the award-winning podcast. It's only 12 minutes every Tuesday, and it's giving you a tool, communication and emotional intelligence tool you can use every week. So that's a great way to improve your strengths in your communication. And then I just launched my newest book, connectedconversationsbook.com. And that is just, it's available for pre-order now for a short amount of time. So go ahead and get your copy of that and come along the journey with me.
I sure will. Wonderful.
Awesome.
I'm pretty sure people will be wanting to find you. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast today. And it's been really, really wonderful. For those of you listening,
I just want to say, Jenny, thank you for all you're doing to help people be more confident and more financial fluent. You're making an impact with what you're doing here. So I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Money is not just about dollars and cents. It's about these conversations, right? If you can learn to communicate, then you're going to have more agency. And then you're going to have more legacy. Awesome. And so for those of you listening, if today's episode helped you gain a bit more clarity on your own financial journey, please take a moment to support the show. The best way to help us grow is to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave a review. It truly helps other deliberate, savvy women find this community. And don't forget to download this episode so you can revisit these questions during your next financial planning session. Thank you again for spending your time with us today. And remember, your resources are your tools. Use them wisely. I'll see you on the next episode.